The following may contain inappropriate language. All opinions expressed by the host and guests do not reflect the views of any company or service.
This is Radio Havana, Cuba.
This is Radio Pyongyang of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
This is Moscow.
Alrighty, everybody. It's time once again for another Crazy Talk. That's right. Another Crazy Talk with yours truly, drnormal. It is November 22nd, 2009. I hope it's November 22nd, 2009. The doc hasn't had a lot of time to worry about the details. And, but that said, I believe it's episode 11. Again, not a whole lot of time to worry about the details tonight. I'm going to plug into my other feed here so I don't have the slap back. You don't know what that means. What that means is essentially I have my headphones plugged into something that sounds like turn your radio down. But I've learned how to deal with it. So what are we doing tonight? It's Crazy Talk. It's Sunday night. I've got my jacket on. I've got the fedora on. I have my pipe. I think we're going to be talking more about media and journalism. That's what we do. We talk about the media. We talk about journalism. We talk about what we... I don't know. I think the topics that are hot, the front plate of the mind, so to speak. Maybe the appetizer, maybe the main course, but definitely we don't talk about the dessert. And with that, have I mentioned Sunday night's a little wonky? Let me tell you about my week, folks, before we get started, because I know you care, and I know it's important. The doc's been a little busy, and I don't want sympathy. I don't want to whine. I just want to tell you, the doc's been making the media. He's been making it and making it and making it this week. We've got the Crazy Talks that we've been doing for November, having a good time, loving the show. This is my experiment. It's me. I'm enjoying it. We have the meme PDX, and then we have the 30-hour day, which that's taking off like crazy. It's going to be interesting. And then we have Meme PDX. Did I mention Meme PDX? And then there's a little thing called Ignite Portland, a big event, and it's a cool thing. It's in its 7th iteration. Ignite Portland was on Thursday, and they asked the doc to go stream that, and we did that, and I just got the videos posted up this morning. Big event, 20 some odd speakers, wonderful stuff. And it's put on by the Legion of Tech. It's a worthy, nonprofit kind of a thing. It's free. It's awesome at the Baghdad Theater. So went there, went with the cameras, went with the gear. We did that. Friday night, Strange Love Live, Brian Westbrook. And a new CDN, which didn't work. But we're going to fix that. We've got it fixed, actually. So we're doing some stuff in the back end to create like a nice private streaming experience for you. We're doing this on Ustream tonight because I didn't want to change things up. Maybe we'll stick with that. But if you notice, SLL is going to go in a different direction with some really nice chat and some really nice streaming that doesn't have commercials popping up at you all the time. Okay? And then we did some stuff for kind of someone we're working with to create some media for them as well on the web. Great group of people, sporting kind of thing. And here we are, Crazy Talk. And I've just wasted 4 minutes 50. So in between that time, blogs are posted, events happen. We make the media happen. this Saturday. I would have loved to have gone to observe, but I couldn't because I was busy making the media. But I watched the tweet stream as I was working and editing, and some interesting things. There's been several blog posts that I have on my screen. I haven't gotten to any of them yet. I really want to read all of them. Maybe we can kind of look at those. But it was an interesting event based on the tweet stream. Journalism. We had Abraham Hyatt on Wednesday to talk about We Make the Media, the aftermath of We Make the Media. The guy we're going to bring in right now, Will Radik, he was tweeting. He makes the media. We make the media. I make the media. You make the media. Let's talk about making the media. And I'm not just talking about making the media, but about the journalism as well. So I'm going to bring him in right now. A good friend of the show, the pontificator of podcasting, the guy, just the karmic influence of KJing. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in Will Radik. Will, are you there? Hello, Will. All right. Heard a good joke.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
That's okay.
Weird. I had to disconnect my mixer and hook my regular microphone up.
You did say you were going to patch in your mixer right before I went live, didn't you?
I did. I screwed up somehow.
That's a good note, a good learning experience for me as a podcast host is when they say, "Hey, I'm just going to patch in the mixer before you go live." Maybe I should go, do the Shatner Khan. No, Khan.
That was such a sparkling introduction to not show up right away too. Also,
I know. Should we just, I could just shut this whole thing down, go back to the intro, and restart the whole thing.
Can we do that?
No.
No. We got people listening, right? Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Oh well. So.
Okay.
Oh,
man.
I think I know what's going on.
Yeah. Let's not make any changes right now, Will.
Okay.
You can do that on your own podcast.
I get something's wrong, and I'm like, I could fix this. Let me tinker with it, and then I get distracted. So that's my ADD. Sorry about that.
Right, man. Okay, so Will, when did you move to Portland?
Oh, let's see here. About a year and I want to say it's a year and a half now. Yeah, it was May of 2008.
So somewhere around the time that I started podcasting, that we launched Strange Love Live and all these wonderful things, which has been about 2 years now. We started actually in November, and then went regular episodes in February, I think it was.
Yeah, I want to say you guys had about maybe 12 episodes when I first started listening to you.
Yeah. And I went out and I went looking for podcasters. I'd been listening to podcasters for a long time, but like local people. Like, okay, so who are my podcasters in Portland? Who are my, my comrades? And
which is exactly how I found your show, or either that or through Twitter, or maybe both.
Didn't find a whole lot, but I did come upon this one Will Radik of the Erraticast, and so I was like, I got to check this guy out. He's in Portland, and I found out you're actually a transplant. You'd come from San Francisco, right?
Yeah, I'm one of those Californians.
Yeah, but you're from San Francisco, Northern California. That makes you cool.
I like my Californian origins. I'm proud of it.
You know what you do? When anyone ever questions you, you just go, "Yeah, I remember when I was hanging out with Ev and Biz, and they were hacking on Twitter on their laptops, and I was having a mint julep, and and they were, ooh, hey dude, ooh."
I never met them.
Yeah, but who cares? We don't know that in Portland. It's just
I got with Scott
man.
Beal a couple times though. He's awesome.
Really? All right.
Yeah, Laughing Squid. Yeah, he rocks. He has these little tweet up things. I think he's still doing it, but he first started it when just before I left, and he just pretty much invites a bunch of people down to a bar and buys them beer.
Right.
So he's awesome.
So I ran into you, and I saw all these Erraticasts, actually, many of which had like maybe almost a year's worth that you had recorded in San Francisco.
Yeah, about that. And I, at certain times was more prolific than others. I think I named the show well in that I would do some weeks up to 4 shows, and then other weeks none at all. At some points there were month-long hiatuses. I think I've done 2 or 3 shows since I first moved here, so that shows you just how how much Eroticast has been, how active it's been. And just recently, I just did a show, and I'm trying to get back into it. But I did my show, my most recent show, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna do this every day for NaPodPoMo." I was like, "I'm really gonna try NaPodPoMo this time. Totally gonna do the National Podcast post month thing. I could do it." And then I posted one episode called it NaPodPoMo 1, and it's still sitting there. The last one that I posted. That was 2 weeks ago.
I got it downloaded right here. So, yeah, and you do a lot of you do a lot of post, right, in your shows, because a lot of your, I mean, they were well produced. I mean, you have like your little music interludes, background music, all kinds of stuff, and you use a lot of sound. You actually get in there and do the Audacity and do some sound editing.
Oh yeah, I love that stuff. Who was your guest you had on the other day who was talking about how he what was his name again?
That was Luke Leffler of Broken Hours, and he's exactly the guy I'm thinking of as well. Between you and Luke, I love both you guys. I mean, I love sound designers, and you are a sound designer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Luke. I'm terrible with names, but yeah, when he was talking about as a kid playing around with tape recorders and stuff like that, man, I used to love that stuff. I used to do that. My sister and my friends and I used to just make little radio shows with one of those tape recorders. We're just lugging the thing around, and they're huge for a kid, but add in our own little commercials and everything. We couldn't edit because we were just basically our editing was limited to stop, play, and pause, and fast forward and rewind. So we did a little bit of editing here and there, like where we could go back and record over, but mostly it was just like, hey, let's make up this commercial on the fly. Hey, cool, this is funny.
And you did a bunch of theater sound design and stuff in San Francisco, right? If I recall. Yeah,
I had some experience with that. I used to go to the theater down there called the Dark Room, and I started going there for Bad Movie Night because they had, which is also part of the inspiration for the thing I'm doing now, but the Seventh Planet Picture Show. But I also got into their live theater there because I made friends with some of the people there, and the owner needed someone who knew about sound, and he hired me to do. The first thing I worked on there was a live theater production, an adaptation of the Ten Commandments.
Nice.
So they took it was basically, I think it's like a 2.5 hour long epic film, maybe longer, and really, really dry Charlton Heston film, made it into a 45-minute comedy.
Did anyone wear a red diaper like Sean Connery did in that one particular film? And I can't remember what it is.
Actually, Zardoz you're talking about.
Zardoz, yes.
Yes, there was one point when the main character, I think the actor's name was Damien Chakota, played Moses. He actually did wear something like
very disturbing.
Just before he got into a kung fu fight with some Bedouin raiders or something.
Nice. Yeah, anybody who needs to know, just go into the Google image search and type in Zardoz and
he's fantastic, actually. He's really funny. Damien is. He came up here with a theater troupe and did a production here that had been really successful in San Francisco. So somebody here might have seen it at the Sunday Lounge, I think last year or the year before that. They did a production called Curse of the Goddamn Ship. And I didn't get to go see it, and I really wanted to because that guy is hilarious. But yeah, the guy who played, he really had his Charlton Heston down. He was just like,
nice.
He would say his name in the third person all the time, like Moses. He was awesome.
Nice.
But,
And right now you're doing a little KJ work, right?
yes, I work at. This is my main source of income is chopsticks. I work at the one on Burnside and the one in MLK in Columbia. So I work at the one on Burnside on Tuesdays and the one in MLK in Columbia on Wednesday nights. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, it is my primary job. I mean, it's where I get my money basically. But I do enjoy it. There's some nights where it feels like a job, but there are many nights where it's a great thing to be there and watch people have a good time. It just depends on the crowd, really. That's what makes the night. Some nights you'll have a bunch of douchebags who are, making you miserable, actively trying to, and some nights you'll have a really great, fun crowd. So it's
and
it's a toss up.
Just because I'm just taking us around the world in the life of Will Radik, I want you to plug the 7 Planet Picture Show coming up as well. Why don't you tell us about that? Let's get all your plugs in up front before we get down to the real issues.
If you wanted to, I spread myself way too thin. If you want to talk about all the things I did, it would take forever. Let's see. Well, the Seventh Planet show is Seventh Planet Picture Show is going to be. Actually, we're going to have a show this Sunday. I'm going to have Robert Wagner and Tara Dublin with me, and we're going to watch. We're going to watch the El Santo versus the Monsters, which is there was a very popular Mexican luchador in Mexico in the 50s, and they let him start making movies, and they ended up making like 30 of them or so. And I think toward the middle of the 60s, they were starting to run out of plots, so he starts fighting monsters and all this other weird stuff. Like it's very goofy. I love it. But anyway, that's the Seventh Planet Picture Show is basically we watch these psychotronic films, these campy, goofy films, and make fun of them, and kind of like Mystery Science Theater, but it's also I like to approach it a little bit differently because I don't really necessarily. Now, in some cases, the film is cut and dry bad film, but I don't necessarily try to approach it as a bad film all the time because I do actually love these movies. I mean, a lot of them are horrible movies and would never be considered by the standard of mainstream or whatever. Not mainstream, but your average idea of a good movie would not be considered good, but I consider them good for different reasons. There are things in the production that are amazing that you don't see in regular movies. There are just certain weird moments that you would never find in other movies, and that's what really drives my interest in them, and that's the kind of thing that I try to point out sometimes. So sometimes it's not just saying, oh, look at this shitty movie, haha, it's funny. Sometimes it's like, well, pointing out something that the movie has that's funny about itself that somebody wouldn't have noticed necessarily. And it's not something I did, it's something that was just there, and I'm just trying to help people see it.
I think that almost defines Hong Kong films. I mean, if you really study like the Hong Kong films, Chinese cinema, even like the stuff like John Woo and guys like that, if you really look at their films, there's just an interesting the beauty of what they do, and what I really like about cinema outside of Hollywood and the U.S. in general is you just might take a left turn halfway through the movie. And, and it's just like, yeah, so Spielberg can do it with Indiana Jones, and it's stupid, but these guys can pull it off. I mean, it's really like, you're like, what in the heck? Where? What? Alien? What? Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times that guy got shot in The Killer before he died. But I wager to think it's about 300.
That's a loaded number right there, because
I don't know. I
mean, you're talking about another psychotronic film there, 300. Yeah, that's like a current psychotronic film.
There we go. I mean, I'm just saying that there's a lot of great cinema and a lot of things that I mean, you're talking about bad movies. My worst cinematic experience is to go to a movie and sit there and go, okay, now this guy's going to go in here. Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, yeah, all right. Yeah, it's his friend and that guy. And it's just everything's so obvious in the plot. that I walk out and I go, that was fun. You know,
that's like 75% of the movies I see. I could pretty much just sketch the whole plot for you by the time I'm halfway through the movie. But I think that's part of the fun. It works into my fun because that just makes it easier for me to come up with things to say about it, or if I'm thinking about them in my head like I'm watching it for the first time. Because usually I don't do these commentaries after seeing it for the first time. It usually it's usually better to do it after a second time watching it at least, because I find that the first time you watch a movie, your brain is sort of working out the novelty of it and kind of putting everything in its place. And then you watch it the second time and your memory has already seen these things. So it's not necessarily focusing on taking in what's happening as it is reinterpreting it. And then that's when you can really, when things really come to me is when I watch it for the second time. So, But if you're not busy wondering what's going to go on with the plot, if you already have it all laid out, then it gives you more time to sit there and play with it in your head, which is what I do when I'm watching movies. That's how I can tolerate to sit here and watch all these really bad movies.
Well, but my point is, some of these bad movies just will take plot turns on their own the first time you see them they're surprising. You're like, really? Wow.
Do you mean like a twist?
Yes, like big, and I think it's probably part due to like budget and.
We're not going to say his name, are we? I know what. There's an elephant in the room right now.
Yeah.
Is it okay? The M. Night Shyamalan we were talking about, the Signs or the
I don't know. I was thinking more
The Village.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, see, I think he popularized in our current cinema, or at least for the past 10 years or so, that kind of twist thing. For a little while after The Sixth Sense was pretty hot, and I think we can blame him for that because
but then again, with his problem is that then it became formula, right? I mean, as soon as you start bringing the aliens in your work, that's what, and by aliens I mean extraterrestrials, folks. I'm not talking Lone Star here. As soon as you do that in your work, it's pretty much go buy the hotels and retire.
You see, now
buy
you
the
say Lone
vacation
Star, and I
home.
think about Spaceballs.
Oh yeah, no, Lone Star was a great film. I
don't know if I've seen that one.
Can't remember his name. I think it was. I can't remember right now. But
only one man would dare to give me the raspberry.
Yeah.
Lone Star.
Yeah. But I don't know. We could talk all night about movies, I think, and and that's really, I think, I kind of don't want to do that. I'm not prepared. We don't have the IMDb fired up. I think we did that. If you want to check out a good discussion on that, go check out Strangelove Live After Hours with Will Radik and Bobby Fatboy Roberts. We get into a lot of interesting cinematic sort of discussion there.
We did trail off a little bit here, didn't we? Just to finish up the Seventh Planet thing. Yeah, so this Sunday at 8:00 at the Mount Tabor Theater, which is
thank you.
48. I think it's 4811 Southeast Hawthorne, and that'll be Sunday at 8 p.m. So come out and check it out. We usually show funny clips for about half an hour after 8, and then show the movie at 8:30.
Awesome.
There's a bar at the back of the theater. It's free. I do take donations.
The bar is free. Wait a minute. The bar is free?
Yeah, the bar's free. That'd be awesome.
You got people lining up around the theater, down the block.
Yeah, that would be a hell of a thing. I would totally go for that. I'd wait in line to get into my own event for that.
Yeah, I mean, Ignite is free, and they pack that house at the Baghdad. And I tell you, the bar ain't free. But boy, if it was, they'd have to sell tickets.
They'd have to be like they'd have to have guards with guns at the door to keep people out of there. Then.
That's right. So let's talk
Unless, of course, they schedule on the same night as Back Fence.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. Yeah, that was out of the organizer's control. Actually, it was not the fault of Back Fence or Legion of Tech.
I'm just poking fun.
Yeah,
poking a little fun.
More the fault of some venues, but those venues are good to them. So. Let's talk about the news, shall we? Let's talk about media. Now,
let's do it.
You were interning for Blogtown. Is that correct?
For the Mercury, yeah.
So Blogtown is the Mercury
for
blog.
The entire summer, yeah.
And tell me about your experiences there, just your takeaways from interning at Blogtown, what it's like to, and I would say, should we say that Blogtown's probably arguably one of the, Mercury is a newspaper, is an independent Portland newspaper, and Blogtown is their blog. And I would say that that's probably if not the most successful, one of the most successful newspaper blog outlets in Portland. I mean,
absolutely.
It's not Oregon Live. Well, I don't even know what that's all about.
Thankfully.
Yeah. People actually go to Blogtown and read it and comment intelligently or not.
I don't really understand what's going on when I go to Oregon Live. There's just so much crap going on that page. I just open it up and I'm like, whoa! I can't. Later, I just close it up and run away in terror.
Yeah, we've covered this in the past on many occasions, and it's the same thing with your news outlet. And they redesign the page, and it's like, there's 20 million links, and you're like, come on, has a usability person gotten in here to fix this or what?
It's like Yahoo in 1997.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit about Blogtown, your experiences there, your experiences working in journalism.
Well, what I did was this whole thing it kind of started as a lark. I mean, I was a big fan of Blogtown and the Mercury, so I would hang out in the Blogtown comments, just post all the time, and talk to them on Twitter a little bit. And then every once in a while they'd ask for interns, and I saw that they were asking for interns before the summer, and I said, "Hey, what the hell? It'll be funny. I'll email in an application, and hey, if it did happen, that'd be cool. But mostly it's just a joke." And so I sent in an email to Marjorie Skinner, who's the managing editor there, and basically what I sent her was an email that said, "I'm not going to give you a resume because the most impressive thing on it would be that I graduated high school. Because my work history is just less than impressive. Most of the things I've done have been off the radar and not on paper. So I pretty much sent her a resume that said that, and then I said, I can pretty much do anything. All I need to do is give me a second to learn it, and I can do it. And I'm pretty good at writing and stuff like that. So writing, I'm pretty good at writing and stuff like that. So yeah. And then I sent a link. And I said, here, check this out. There's also this, and I sent her a link to the video I made, the hamburger for breakfast video. I don't know if you saw that, but
I've seen the cheese sandwich video.
There was I made it what I called it. I called it a nano musical, and it's on YouTube actually under my account W Radik, and I made that's WRADIK. I made a video where I had just woken up and it was like 3 p.m. and I was holding up some frozen package of hamburger and singing about how I was going to eat it, and I had just run my webcam, on my MacBook Pro, and just like, hey, what I'm gonna eat for breakfast? I'm gonna have a hamburger for breakfast. Ooh.
And Will, this is how you got a job as a journalist
on
a leading blog in a major market.
Internship, but yeah, I sent that in, and
this gives me hope. I don't know. This gives...
Well, there's more to it than that, of course. Actually, what happened was, I think Marjorie thought it was totally ridiculous because she sent me an email back. She said, "Oh, thanks for that. We'll get in touch with you." And then she went on vacation, and then Allison was in charge of hiring the interns. So Hallett, I think, pretty much was responsible.
So you got
for
the job because it was a clerical mistake.
Because the person who was gonna be hiring the interns went on vacation, and then Allison Hallett took over, and she followed me on Twitter, and I think she was like, "Hey, cool." I think she might have even caught some flack for it later. I don't know, but because at first I wasn't the best intern. I have a problem with keeping my schedule at the same time, day and time. Like I woke up, for example, an hour ago.
Right.
So I kind of like it's my body clock's on a 28-hour day, so I wake up later and go to bed later every day. And if I don't do that, then I kind of get really cranky and uncomfortable. But yeah, so I I got the internship because of that, and it was fantastic. I had a great time.
Well, let's give you a
there
little
was
credit. You do, you know, you do post to your blog. I'm not going to say regularly, but you do do a lot of blog posts, and you are a blogger and a podcaster. So
every once in a while I get a fire under my ass and I start doing things, and then I want to do something else. So it's not really, I'm always doing something, but like lately my thing has been network administration. Like at my house, I've been like learning about all these things about networking and about about Linux that I never knew, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I got the thing at the Mercury, and it was great because well, for one thing, I'm a huge fan of William Stephen Humphrey. Like he is hilarious, and he's one of the first people I noticed when I moved here, when I started reading the Mercury, and I didn't know who he was at all, and I had seen a video that he posted to Blogtown, and it was like it was I think the first one I said I noticed was these girls being upset because their favorite on American Idol lost, and they just freak out and go into total histrionics and and just have a complete fit, like these four middle school girls just trying to outdo each other about how mad they are that what's his name? I don't know, the guy. This was last year, so whoever the hell was on American Idol last year, who was the second finalist, didn't make it, and I thought that was just so funny. And then he's posting all these other videos, which are right up my alley because I'm into the whole psychotronic, like weird stuff, and like cultural kind of anomalies. These old 80s videos, or like the videos, like kind of like public service videos that came out after just after rap had broken as a mainstream thing, and you had all these like white people running around like, yo, my name's Jim B and I'm here to say like don't start a fire in the woods today, or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like that kind of, there's a lot of that out there. And so yeah, he's posting this kind of stuff like, man, this guy is hilarious, and I gotta read this blog more. And that's kind of like what really got me into reading the Mercury. And then I started to get to know, all the other writers there and what they were doing. And then I started to really get familiar with the local politics and what's going on with the city councils, and the whole, like, the mayoral scandal. And then I started getting to know, like, who Randy Leonard is and all that other stuff. And because, I was new there, so I didn't know any of that. And I think that in itself, the city council in itself is a hell of a show, man. Like, just following the news on that is entertaining as hell. And, Matt Davis does a great job of making it even more entertaining. But and Sarah Merkus is a reporter there too, and she's like works under him because he's the editor and she's a reporter there. But she's awesome too as far as her reporting on. She says some hilarious things about what's going on in town too.
So and there was a little dust up at We Make the Media on Saturday, which was this journalism. And actually, I'm going to bring Abraham Hyatt in now. He's actually just perfect timing. Abraham, are you there?
I am.
Okay. Jeez, I can't seem to conference you two in, and Will's a little bit fuzzy. So, what I wanted to talk about is We Make the Media, and I guess I'm just going to kind of pop back and forth between you guys. So what's the rundown? What happened at We Make the Media?
Quickly?
Yeah. Give it to us in quick chunk.
In a quick summary, it was a very intense day. It was a very exhausting day. I think a good number of people really walked away feeling like that they had been able to really explore some interesting ideas and the viability of those ideas. I think other people walked away very frustrated by sort of the limited nature of what was going on that day, and sort of the huge technological gap that existed between a lot of people in that room. So good and bad.
So what's the outcome? So some people enjoyed it, and others did not. I mean, as far as for looking at the tweet stream, it seemed like a disaster.
And that was from this core contingent of people who are actually using Twitter, who were, I think a lot of people felt extremely, I don't want to say ostracized, but I just want to say that they felt completely left out of the rest of what was happening. The group of people using Twitter were back in the corner of the room, which was just logistically part of it. That's where some of the power cords were. And the audience as a whole, there was a good number of people who were very tech savvy who, but the MC and some of the main organizers really seemed to have an archaic idea of the role technology should be playing when we look at whatever thing we're trying to build in this conference environment.
But that's a little tough when it's called something We Make the Media. First, I got to ask you,
Yeah.
I've been having a problem with this, and I think I tweeted this out earlier. We Make the Media. I sent a tweet about this. I don't think journalists make the media. I'm sorry. Stuff happens and journalists report on what happens. Making the media, I mean, that's Hollywood, and that's television, and that's other things. Do I have that wrong?
Well, I think that the name was, I think you're right. I think the name was more specific in terms of we make the tools that we're going to use for journalism in the future. That was the idea of the name, not necessarily media as in a broader definition like you're using.
So it's more like the tools.
Hello?
Hello, Will. We got you back. Thank God.
Can you hear me?
I can. And we've got
Awesome.
Abraham as well.
Hello.
I might sound a little better. I actually managed to run the stuff through my mixer. I'm not too loud, am I?
Will's making the media right now as we speak on the podcast by plugging things in and out and experimenting. But that's what we do here. We experiment. That's how we
plugging things in and out.
Make the media.
No time for the old in out, love. Just came to read the meter.
So, Will, you were watching the tweet stream for We Make the Media, right?
Yes. Oh, hi, Abraham.
Hi, how are you?
And any feeling? You seem to have a couple strong feelings or some ideas about that, dude. Do you have a question about what happened there? I mean, obviously, both of us didn't attend, but it's definitely curious. And we were just, Abraham, before you joined us, we were talking about, Will did some interning at Blogtown over at the Mercury. I know there was some crazy stuff that was going on with Matt Davis and the Mercury in that thing. What was going on with that?
There were a couple people who were really, and I think rightfully so. I mean, I'm not going to try and overly defend the conference in one direction or, skewer it in another direction. I mean, I think that they were, like I said, that was part of a larger group of people, and the people who were using Twitter were not just pissed off. I think were I don't know, insulted is the right word, and I think that Matt was definitely one of those people. I loved his tweets. I thought they were really appropriate. I thought they were hilarious.
Yeah, he was providing a lot of good content there.
Yeah, he was. And the tragedy is that the people who were sort of, on Twitter in that area of the room there was not a way for there to be some kind of a bridge between kind of the rest of the people in the room, because the rest of the room was completely oblivious to what was going on. There was absolutely no clue that the back channel was occurring. And it was, I think, due to the sort of old school attitude that the main organizers had come into this conference with, which is everyone will sit and we will talk for a while, and then we will all talk in groups and we will make decisions and we will come together. I don't think, a fraction of the room knew the word unconference. And I would bet money on that.
So I mean, yeah, and as was pointed out by Betsy in the chat room, I mean, people were told to turn their cell phones off, and
Right.
in the beginning,
Right.
So
It's just kind of staggering.
Really?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really exacerbated it was the MC was Joe's a really nice guy. He was so far in the opposite direction of some of the people in that room, Matt, Betsy, any of us back in that corner, that he just came across as laughable a lot of times.
So I mean, that's a hell of a gap.
It's an enormous gap.
I mean, because essentially you've got, again, the people with the journalism background, and and the people who I mean, in your terms, make the media. We're here making the media right now. We're streaming. We're for better or for worse. I'm not saying this is anything, okay? But we have the tools. We have the ability to do it, and we're trying to fill voids that we see that aren't being met by, the papers, by television, by radio. And it's kind of like, when you've got one group sitting here doing it and another group sitting there writing position papers all the time, and you're like, when are those two groups going to come together? My takeaway from it, and Will and I were DMing back and forth. There was some back channel going on, along with some people who were at the conference at the time. My conclusion was, I'm just going to throw up my hands and do it. I'm an action guy. I don't need to sit around with a group of people and tell me, oh, let's talk about OPB funding our efforts, or what's the trade-offs between commercial funding versus institutional funding and crap, whatever.
Normal action guy.
I understand, right? Well, Will, you're an action guy. I mean, you're a little erratic about your action, but
I mean, I'm not gonna, stand up on my,
Right.
Well, okay, yeah, I will. Actually, I'll get up on a pedestal on a soapbox for a minute and say, what, Mike, you were involved with it. I put on a conference earlier this year where we made the media. We did the same ideas of looking at some of the underpinnings and saying, what can be changed? How can we get better? But the attitude that went into that conference was the idea that we are all participants in a way that did not happen at the We Make the Media conference. That conference was very top down. Let's use some jargon, but I'm going to stand up on my pedestal and say I think that the digital journalism camp earlier this year was a far bigger success because of the fact we did not try and save journalism, this giant lofty goal, but instead looked at it on a realistic level and said, okay, let's turn on our cell phones, let's make sure, we had limited Wi-Fi access there, which was an issue in and of itself. But
and that's not the only conference that has a challenge. The tech conferences have that
we've
challenge
all run
too.
into that.
Yeah.
But
So would you say this is kind of like a problem of getting too many people with from different areas of this field, different time periods, different expectations together all in one roof and having a vague goal of what they were going to do? Or
it was absolutely a lack of direction. I think that if the top people had, and I understand why they went about it the way they did, but you cannot go into a room of 130 people and say, let's democratically come up with a brand new company. That's not how companies work. That's not how successful organizations work.
Not at all.
Strong leadership. I think there is in some ways, but at some point in time, there has to be a leadership. There has to be someone saying, we're going to do more than just write position papers. How do we put, and I think that's what that day devolved into, is that, had the leadership, had the top people been, and I think that they would have had a much more limited vision, but I think that it would have, that people, us folks that were in the corner, the Twitter folks, whatever you want to call them, would have seen the conference from the outset and said, okay, that's not really something we're interested in. But to be invited into the conversation and then to find out that you don't even have a place there is just a failure overall.
So
does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the takeaway. It's tough because I was thinking about this morning. And again, we're kind of at a disadvantage with the tweet stream. I actually wanted to go, but I literally couldn't because I was too busy. And I was told later that it was probably best I didn't go. Just by virtue of the fact that I'm feeling feisty, and I could say something that might ruffle some feathers. I don't know. But hey, we have CrazyTalk to do that, so I have my own forum.
You mean you have a media outlet?
But I was thinking that part of the problem I'm observing with journalism, and again, I'm not I don't hate journalists. I don't hate journalism. I love it. I just
those dirty journalists. I
want journalism, right? There's something that has left me that I want back. And I want it in the new medium that we're all using here. And the thing that struck me is that there's in anything that evolves over time, and modern journalism, what is it, Abraham, about 100 years old maybe, modern journalism, give or take a couple decades?
Yeah, well, a little less than 100 years probably, yeah.
But let's say even 100 years modern journalism, right, a little less. And within the newspapers and the things that grew up in that century, you have a culture, and a very strong, ingrained culture. And it is tough to move a culture like that into an entirely new medium. Some things in that culture drop away. I mean, you have these people like, and my take on it was like the whole structure of We Make the Media, where it was like, we're going to get in groups, we're going to write these position papers or whatever, we're going to talk about grants, we want to talk about the content, we don't. The culture, the medium that journalism is now working in, for better or for worse, is the internet culture, the web culture. And that culture is the culture of startups and technology. That culture is the experimentation, the guys out in the garage, the guys out make it happen or not, being successful or failing. That's the culture that journalism is in today.
Yeah, and at the same time, the mainstream is pretty much abandoning the whole the core ethos of journalism, I think, too.
Well, yes. Well, I think in the last, in the last several years of my lifetime here, in the last decade or so, I would totally agree with that. The commercialization of news and media and real-time news, that cable news would be a great example of that. But this is the medium you're in, and you have this culture that is doesn't work well in that medium. What I think the people I think who win in journalism, in the future of journalism, are those people that can grasp, good journalism, the good, what would you call it? The good practice of journalism, along with the startup culture of technology. The idea of what's that?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The idea that people are going to jump in and do this. Investigative reporting is gone today, but the startup culture could grow investigative journalism again. I mean,
that was what this conference was about. The top guys who put this on are deeply passionate about their concern in how journalism has changed, not just print, but broadcast as well. The loss of, quality, enterprise, thoughtful journalism that's not driven by a commercial, whatever. You cannot doubt that was their goal. The question is, and it's exactly like you just pointed out, it's how you go about doing that. And within the culture of journalism, there are several different, there's, I guess you can really say, two different directions. There's the old school, and there are the people who are looking at it in terms of that journalism is technology, that, we have to have an agile, I mean that in the literal sense, the ability to change quickly and to fail and to have a startup mentality. And you put both of those things in that conference room, which is what happened on over the weekend, and those are the results, I think.
So, yeah, and I think, I think that's a good point, because I keep looking back on the early days of journalism. Actually, less so probably on the early days from going from print to radio to television. Okay? And that would have been kind of the World War II days, the Edward R. Murrow days. I don't think these guys were sitting around pontificating every single day about what they were doing. I mean, these were the shoe leather guys who went out, had a radio. I mean, radio was still pretty. It was like the internet is today, right? We're gonna get. I mean, it was pretty new technology, so to speak. And especially if you're a war correspondent and you're actually using radio as a war correspondent, I mean, the technology was around for a while, but to me, historically, that seemed like a startup mentality. People hadn't thoroughly defined it yet. I guess perhaps it's this. In technology, there's always this idea of continual change and evolution. And for better or for worse. I'm not saying culturally this is necessarily a good thing, but the way you move forward in technology is, you eat the children and you make the better widget and you move on. It seems that journalism needs to evolve to that level. It seems like it stopped. It became stagnant. So you have this one level of journalism that sits in the realm of academics, and then you have something that's labeled journalism that's a commercial product, which isn't journalism at all.
And I completely agree with you. And I think that if you and Ron Buell, the guy who, was the founder of this event, sat down and talked about journalism, you guys would mesh perfectly. In fact, I don't doubt it at all, It's the mindset, or it's the which camp do you fall into in terms of how to solve that. And I think the majority of the people at that, I don't know, I guess the way that I've made peace with that conference is that I'm looking at the other people, the other side of the room who weren't in that corner, who were, very serious about some of the work that they were doing there, and saying, you know what, good luck, you guys. If you need help from these radical kids in the corner, come ask for it. Our paths, at least out of this conference, are not going to are not in the same direction.
Well, I mean,
and that may be really cynical, but I just don't see a way to try and incorporate what was happening in the other parts of the room with what was happening back in Twitterland, or whatever you want to say.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, when a proposal comes up that, hey, we should start I don't know what it was, a non-profit, a for-profit cable news channel, a cable TV news channel that supports this, everyone on Twitter was like, what? I mean, I tweeted back, I said, hey, you should get Paul Allen hooked up with that. He's got some, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think that was around the time that one of the organizers said the phrase that video is popular on the internet.
Yeah, I heard.
And I think that really got. I think Betsy was the one who pointed that one out. I think that began to set the tone for the day.
Yeah, I think it was and there was a comment that we should start something on the web, doing video on the web, and then we should move that into a cable news channel. It's like, well, good luck with that, because if you're successful with it on the web, you may rethink whether you're going to need to,
Let's build a car and then use that technology to make stone wheels.
Exactly. It's the horse buggy. But
I like stone wheel.
Sorry.
Will, jump in here. We need to get. What's your take on all this? I mean, you saw the tweet stream.
Jump for my love.
I mean, you did some Blogtown stuff. I mean, what do you want from the news? What do you want to see from journalists?
I think that, for one thing, I think that it's important to have a concrete, much like there used to be, a concrete division between actual news, which should be dry and like a nonprofit source, hopefully, and then I think that which we do have in a way with some things like NPR and things like that. But I think that it's also important to have like a division between that and the opinion and the entertainment news, which is what we have now is entertainment posing as news. You have like Fox and all that stuff, and
right.
So and then you have a bunch of idiots who don't know the difference, and that causes huge problems, and that's caused a huge political split. I mean, it's there's always been a huge political split, but now it's polarizing even more, I think, the people in this country. So we have this, no matter who's running the country, you have this huge dissatisfied set who's going to cause problems because they're being rallied on by an outlet pretending to be journalists.
Well, so I mean, you were telling me in DM, your challenge is as well, that people, you said that there's all these cool things that are going on the web that you're connected with, but people don't know about.
Well, yeah, that's definitely another problem. I mean, I think that's really something that the time is going to solve, and I think it's happening more and more that people are turning to the web for their entertainment, and the mainstream media in doing certain things is helping that by trying to survive the way they are by putting up, for example, like all the shows you can go to now, the Hulu, and
right.
You can go and watch all the original Star Trek episodes online, things like that. That's helping these people get more into the area of getting their media from the web, and then they will eventually get around to looking at hopefully more freelance sources. That's what one can hope, but I think it is a question of accessibility.
And that's the tough challenge. That's the challenge. So you've got the people who are making the media on the web that have a tough road ahead. To get the word out, to get people, because it's still new to a lot of people.
I think your two main things are you have an ignorance, and you have a lack of respect for the medium. For example, people have this idea that if just because anybody can do it and anybody can listen to it for free gives it less legitimacy, because you do have tons of people out there just throwing crap up, on YouTube, for example, and things like that. But there is good stuff out there, and that's what people need to realize. And if they do a little legwork to go out there and find it, and actually take an active part in choosing their media instead of just expecting it to be hand-fed to them as they have with the TV for years, then I think that it would be more enriching for everybody.
Well, Go ahead.
I just want to throw out and say, I think that if we lived in San Diego right now, we would be having a very different conversation. The Voice of San Diego gets brought up all the time as this, kind of the this wonderful site, that we should all aspire to. But it's because they're a damn good site that focuses on investigative journalism, enterprise journalism. They have a huge staff, or a huge staff. They have a decent staff. They also work with 40 to 50, pool of about 40 to 50 different freelancers doing hard news on, they beat the daily newspaper down there all the time on stories. And I completely agree with you when you're saying, Will, that people learning to shift the way that they consume news. But if you give them something to go to, you give them something like the Voice of San Diego, that's going to, I think, help facilitate that shift.
Absolutely. I think there should be, I think that it will help if there are sources that can direct people to these, to directories of independent content, but then you have to get people to those directories too. So.
Right.
Well, I think that's what we don't have right now. I mean, I think we don't have a good, we have some very good anchor blogs, but what we don't have is a good point to I want to say aggregate, but less of the kind of Google aggregator, I'm going to rip off your content type thing, to more of a, this is the launching point for the content, for multimedia content, for journalism. And I think that's, again, we're so far removed from what was discussed at that conference, but I think that's a bigger question, and that's what's not being thought about and what's not being discussed. And, in the back channel, I started working on some things to actually move that forward, to actually think about how can we move forward with launching that content. It seems like, when you go back to journalism and you say, my concept is a part-time journalist. And I know if I would have walked in and said that in this group, I may have gotten booed out of the room, I guess, because these are full-time journalists, right? These are people who
there
make
was a lot
living.
of freelancers there. There was a lot of freelancers there.
Good. Because
your freelancers are still full-time in a sense, right? I mean, they're working full-time, but they're just freelance.
Yeah, one of the panelists was Michelle Rafter, who's probably who's has got the best freelancing blog out there. In my very biased opinion.
Right, and she mentioned, I mentioned something about corporate media and the fact that corporations with deep pockets can just come in and say, well, this is how we're going to message on the web, and we're going to hire journalists to do it. And I know of some examples that are happening there. And I said, that's the future. Has anyone considered that? And she said, that's already happening. I'm doing that right now. And it's like, well, yeah, it was kind of a loaded question on Twitter. But I think that, we're looking to these larger entities. And one that kind of concerns me is the OPB entity. I'm not sure what their play is in all of this. Because it seemed like it always came back to, well, we'll start this nonprofit. It'll be media. We're going to go do a cable news channel eventually, and OPB is going to be our fund this or something. Can you explain to me what the thought process was there? Again, I saw this from quite a distance, but what were they talking about?
Well, I didn't really see it being problematic, but
okay.
I had a couple people come in, and it ended up being, I think, a big issue. It surprised me. There was a couple people who came up to me during the conference and after the conference, 3 separate people who said, what I think this whole conference was about was OPB, which OPB is in the middle of trying to do this big expansion to covering a lot more in Oregon. And these people said, I think this whole conference was about OPB trying to listen to innovative ideas that we talk about and then rip them off and do them on their own. I've been involved with the conference long enough to say I'm very positive that wasn't the case from my perspective. I haven't seen anything like that. But I think you've got a real problem on your hands when the people at your conference think that the sponsors are ripping off your ideas. That's not just a PR problem. That's that's a big problem. So, in all honesty, and maybe I'm just being naive, I really believe that they were there because they were excited about other good quality media in Oregon and that developing and growing. That was my perspective, but that was not a perspective that was shared by everyone for sure.
I can envision, a place, and we'll have to check out the whole San Diego thing, but envision a place that is, a launching point on the web that you can go and find content, a syndicator, right? But it's not only that, but it's a self-help group. It's a idea. It's like Abraham saying, I want to do some web video or something like that. And then someone steps in and says, well, let me help you out with that. In
a lot of ways, you're describing PDX.FM there.
To a certain degree. I'm thinking in the more non-profit sense of the word,
right,
rather than the for-profit. I think there should always be a hybrid model. I think that there should be profitable ventures, and I think there should be non-profitable ventures. I think the non-profit is the feeder, to all this. It's like the cable access of the web, where
right,
you go
especially
out.
when it comes to news, you should have non-profit sources.
Yeah. And that's again. I mean, that doesn't mean that you don't feature what's going on at PDX FM or in other places. You feature that prominently as well. But this is where someone says, "Hey, I've got a story to tell. I want to do this. Here's my barriers to entry. How do I get this done?" And then, or if I've got this done, how do I feature my YouTube video? How do I feature my blog or my content where I'm doing something here? And you're partnering up with people, right? So you're featuring it and you're partnering up with people.
I don't know if you're giving the perfect setup to a nonprofit here in town called Portland Media Lab,
right?
That I've been involved with. So I'm a little biased about it, but it's run by a guy, Cornelius Swart, who's the publisher of the Portland Sentinel, and he's trying. The Portland Media Lab just incorporated on a state level, so they're on their way to becoming a 501c3, and the end goal of that is to be something very similar to what you're describing, which is a training, working in conjunction with existing newsrooms, but bringing in not just bloggers, but quote-unquote traditional journalists and providing training for them. Say, okay, you want to learn how to do video? Well, here's how to do video. You're going to work on stories with us, and then we're going to take these stories and they're going to be used, as an audio story. You can use it on cable. If it's in print, something text, you're going to use it in perhaps a variety of different, existing news outlets. So the end goal would be very, very similar to what you were saying, with a very news specific. So it wouldn't be just general anybody who wants to learn how to use video. It would be but it wouldn't just be, we're training citizen journalists, or we're only training people in existing newsrooms. It's bringing both of that together.
Well, yeah, I mean I guess that's the problem with the journalism bent, is you've got to be able to say, you've got to be able to cultivate people and let them grow. When you kind of put the parameters around citizen journalism or something like that. I mean, some people don't even know that they're doing citizen journalism, or that they want to go in that direction. They just have a story to tell, or they have something that they want to do in their neighborhood or somewhere, and you've got to kind of open it up again, experiment with it. It's a little open-ended and it's a little scary, it also includes making sure you're highlighting what's going on viably, viable enterprises commercially as well. Kind of that mixture of here's what's going on in media on the web in Portland, whether it's journalism or it's commercial or something else. But this is what's happening in your city. I think the big problem I have is when things like this are started up, the focus becomes very narrowed, which can be good. But I think in what we're discussing in this media, we have to take the broadest scopes and let people. The reason I say this is because I keep running across people who are like, you know what, I'm going to go out and do this. I'm starting to film a documentary, and I got equipment over here, and I'm going to make this happen. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's exactly the kind of person you want to pull into this, And they may not know, or they may not, Portland Media Lab may not be the right fit. You just want to make it easy for them to come into this aggregation of what's going on, on the web, in your city, in the media, in your city, and that's the tough part.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that was really missing from that conversation yesterday was the idea of partnerships. Oh yeah, sure, we want to start up the new cool hot thing for Portland, but if we really want to support an investigative nonprofit, well, why aren't we talking about Investigate West out of Seattle, which is an investigative nonprofit up there who's just gotten a nice this year $50,000 grant, and they're going to start producing investigative journalism in the state of Washington. I got to talk to the founder earlier this year, and she said they were very interested in extending their coverage eventually down to Portland. So if we start, it's like you're saying, let's start thinking of ways to expand outside of necessarily. I keep coming back to this, what happened on Saturday, so I'm putting in that perspective again. But if we're just thinking of like, what's a new news organization we're going to create, like you're saying, why don't we think about this in terms of who we can be working with? I think a bunch of different levels.
Yeah, I think the fundamental problem I'm having is it needs an injection of the technology startup model. So I see the journalists going, well, let's do this, let's create the, you need a few folks in technology going, well, here's how it goes. Oh yeah, you want to discuss that? Let's discuss that later. Let's move forward on this experiment and hurry up. You're already late. I think that's my frustration with it is coming from a technology background.
Yeah.
I just want to kick the ball down the field, and let's see what happens.
And I think part of that is that whole leadership thing I was talking about. I mean, there's a point in which we can all work collaboratively on something, but at some point in time, someone needs to stand up and say, okay, this is how we're going to get it done. And it's got to be somebody who understands that tech end of things. It can't be someone who sees technology as, oh, it's like a printing press.
Exactly.
It's what we use.
Good point.
When
it's like just a side. It's a piece of the solution. It's like, well, it's the medium, and it's very much ingrained in what you're doing, and your culture is changing with the medium that you're using. Will, I want to ask you, because I think this is you are, we earlier on we were talking about you are a media producer. You've done a lot of audio design, both in San Francisco and here. You have a lot of skills. What do you need? What if you just woke up one day, you've done some internship with Blogtown. What would be your dream place to go and to work with your skills, maybe to forward better journalism, or what are you looking for? What help do you need, and what would you be looking for, and what skills would you gain back from that?
Well, I think I'm a well. If you're talking about me, I mean, I'm a rare case. Like I would be someone who would need not necessarily the access to. I have the technology. I have the
Okay.
technology, and I have the
Okay.
skills to use it. What I don't have is, if you were talking about what I could use to launch, like for example, I don't have a website for Seventh Planet Picture Show yet because I don't have
Okay.
the resources to buy the domain and to buy the hosting. So when it comes to like me, what I need is the two things that I could use are interns to help me manage the day-to-day stuff and the monetary resources or hosting or that sort of thing. So I think that maybe their nonprofit could provide some of those things, like the hosting, for example.
And what could you give back?
Well, a number of things. I could also help train other people, and I'll provide tech services for them. There's a number of different things. Now, that's something interesting you could get into if you were doing a nonprofit on this level. You could do sort of a moderated bartering, I guess you would put it. I don't know. Well, if you look at Free Geek, their model, they're a
I love it.
nonprofit, and they operate on the idea that computers should be accessible to everyone. Not only do they have a community center where you can go and access computers and the internet, if you go there and volunteer for 24 hours doing some work that anybody can do, and if you have any incapability, like physically or whatever, they will do their best to help you get it done and to be able to do this 24 hours. And then after you do that, you get a free computer. And they will also even teach you how to build computers there, and you can take the 6 when you build them. So, and to do that, in order to accomplish that, they have a variety of people there who have different skills. Some of them are regular interns, but also they have their volunteers who are working to get their 24 hours, like people who are helping to recycle the donations. There are people who have gone through the build program who are build instructors who help teach people, and they're basically trading their skills for the benefits of the community. And then you have the thrift store and all that stuff. It's a very for me it's been an enormous help because I'm able to do things now. Like I have a media server set up in my house that I built myself because I was able to go and buy the parts for it for $50, and it's a fairly decent computer. So there's things like that, yeah, and by providing my skills in the way by providing my skills as a volunteer to them, I've gained, for example, the ability to buy things at the thrift store cheaper. They give an 80% discount to volunteers. So things like that. I think that if you're talking about a nonprofit that's going to help facilitate, and not just journalism but media in general, independent media in general, then you have to try to schedule to get some kind of facilitated trade of skills and resources, and but it also does. You do need strong leadership, like Abraham is saying. I mean, that's the thing is the balance with a nonprofit is to try to get that strong leadership, but to maintain impartiality and give everybody a voice. And at Free Geek, what they do is they have a council that anybody can go to, and after you go there a certain number of times, you can even get a vote and things like that. But there are also certain people who've been there, core volunteers. But anybody who really wants to have a part of it and is passionate about it can go there and help, contribute to the policy or whatever. And so, I mean, it's a tough thing, It's just like organizing a government. I mean, you have to have rules and structure and to make sure things don't get out of control and all that stuff. But yeah. Essentially, I'm rambling.
Yeah, but
what you need is a facilitation of sharing of resources and facilitating those resources being shared and distributed.
Well, you're facilitating of resources, and your example, I think, was dead on. The Free Geek example is just a wonderful example of both putting technology into the hands of people and training them on the skills of technology as well with that technology to actually build. Now, I'm not suggesting that we create a journalism lab where people build their own computers and that. Maybe they do. I don't know. But that example, that hands-on example, is an excellent one. And Free Geek, or Free Greek, as I like to call it from time to time.
You want some feta? No, that's racist. Okay.
Free Geek is a very successful example. They've been around for quite some time. Abraham, can you mash that up? You're familiar with the Free Geek example? Can you can you kind of mash up what we've done in technology with Free Geek for journalism and media in general?
Well, I can go a couple different places. I'll start off by saying that I think one of the most terrifying things for most journalists, even young journalists today, is the ability to give up the feeling that they are the voice of authority when it comes to news, and that the way that they see that the news should be disseminated is the right way and the best way. I have a hard time with that. I mean, I think that I'm somebody who gets it, and I have a really hard time on a very visceral gut level of being able to give up that level of control. And so when you open up the management model like that, it's just, it must be done, absolutely. And it's terrifying. Stephen Smith was the opening speaker, the keynote speaker for the conference, and he got a lot of shit online for some of what he was talking about. And I actually really like him, and I agreed with a lot of what he said, more than most people did, it seemed like. But he did and I think we may have talked about this the last time I was talking on the last time I was talking with you, Mike, that all of these transparency things with the newsroom that he worked at in Spokane, of opening up the top level editorial meetings he was streaming them on the web and having live chat. So as the newspaper made the decisions for the next days, how it was going to cover the news, the public had complete access, and it was an open conversation with them. And opening up meetings to, staff meetings to the public, and it was crazy stuff. This is back in like 2006, 2005. I mean, he was really looking at that idea of when we, the free geek model of opening up the decision making process to a larger audience than just these, whatever core group would be usually guiding it. Is really powerful, and it has to be done, and it just has to be done.
Well, and for me, I think what speaks to me about the Free Geek model is empowering anyone with the tools, whether it's the empowering a journalist who's been in journalism for a long time with the tools of technology to do their reporting, right, to tell their stories. Or it's empowering a technologist, someone from technology, to learn more about journalism and
I think
storytelling.
In your media, you're going to have a division too. I mean, you're going to have people, especially in media, who don't necessarily who don't have the talent or don't want to learn about the tech side, and don't really have any interest in it, and vice versa. And I think that another thing that nonprofit could do is kind of like what PDX.FM is doing, is providing an ability, a place for people to go and say, well, I'm not interested in the tech side. I don't know anything about it, but I still want to get into this whole independent broadcast thing that podcasting has provided. Because up until now, mostly what you've got in your independent podcasters are people who have the unique combination of being able to, not unique, the combination of being able to have those tech skills to put on a show, and the ability to the internet savvy to even know that the stuff is there in the first place. And so to get a good shows, that's a rare combination. So
right.
If you provide those resources, and you have people there who are providing their tech skills to people who don't necessarily know how to do that and aren't even interested in it, then you're giving them the chance to have a voice too in this area where they wouldn't necessarily be able to do it.
Abraham, any closing thoughts?
I think that we, to go back to the same, description or metaphor, or whatever that's been used to describe the division in the We Make the Media conference, those of us back in that corner, those of us who are on Twitter, those of us who felt like there was just a huge between us and the rest of the room, I think it really behooves us going forward to think about if you were to ask me right now, hey, I want to go out and support some really cool aspect of local media that's really doing something like Free Geek. I've got my favorite example, which is Portland Media Lab. But how many other examples can I give? There's not a lot out there. There's some great, blogs are doing great journalism. Everybody from, cooking up a story to, Silicon Florist or whoever. But who's actually playing this role that we're talking about tonight, of the group that provides the training or is the facilitator or helps bridge these gaps? And there's not a lot of them out there. And so us, folks that were in that corner and the larger tech and tech journalism community, that's, I think, our challenge got handed to us on Saturday, of what needs to be done locally for journalism, and it's not to start off with this giant vision of, we're going to save all of journalism through a new nonprofit. No, it's to start looking more locally and smaller, and try to find those answers. And I don't know what those answers will be, but I think that we're the people who are the best suited to make it happen. I mean, I know I'm sounding a little cocky, but Mike, like you're saying, we're the people who get that startup mentality. We're the people who get the technology. We're the people who get the stuff that's actually being done out there right now. We don't just sit around and have planning meetings. So, it's up to us to get out there and make some kind of change.
Well, and I think with that, it's time to wrap up. It's been great to have Will Radik with me.
Yo.
With the Radicast. And also,
great to be here.
Wonderful to have Abraham Hyatt come back in for some more torture and pain and humiliation. But we love him. And
well, thank both of you guys. That was a great conversation. I really had a good time.
Guys, do me a favor and both stay on the line after I close the show. I need to talk to you guys about something secret, using the secret hashtag. Not really secret, guys. Not really secret. So hang on the line. I'm Doc Normal. This has been Crazy Talk for Sunday, the 22nd. We're talking media. We're talking journalism. That's how we do it here. My summation, what I think is, I think we're going to have pockets of people doing a lot of cool things in Portland, and then we're going to have to figure out how to put it all together. And that's what's going to happen. Thank you all for joining me. I do appreciate it. Good night, everybody.